welcome to Mojo and the Bro. I'm Mike,
And this is Jameis.
and yeah, we're going to be your hosts here for episode 3 of Mojo and the Bro. Last week, we ended up having Luke as our guest.
It was like 2 weeks ago. We had kind of a week hiatus in there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we had to basically set up some new equipment, as you can probably tell by now.
Yeah, we decided that the setup we were going with kind of wasn't working out as well. You couldn't hear my voice because I was sitting a little farther away from the mic than that Mike was. And so, yeah, we just decided to completely change it up, the setup a little bit. And
Right, yeah.
now here we are. Hopefully it sounds better and you can hear our voices.
And speaking of like these microphones, Jameis's dad was actually the one that hooked us up with this microphone equipment.
Yeah,
And
amazing. It was like, I totally wasn't expecting it because I was like, we have this microphone and it just doesn't seem to be working out. And then I called my dad, not at all like expecting him to give us a bunch of microphone equipment. I was just like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. What you up to? And he was like, yeah, I listened to your podcast and I couldn't hear you very well. I have all this extra equipment that I would basically like to give you and, help actually do this right,
right,
And
exactly. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm not going to pass that up. I mean, we're college students, so I can't afford to buy professional mic equipment myself.
Yeah,
so.
same here. But yeah, that's awesome that your dad was able to hook us up pretty well for that. And again, like 2 weeks ago, we had Luke on the podcast as a guest. And speaking of Luke, do you remember what happened after that?
Oh man, this guy, he's one of our good friends. So we hang out with him a lot. He was over at our house. I can't remember what exactly we were doing.
I think we were just like hanging out, chilling
Yeah,
out.
we were just hanging out, chilling, probably watching a movie.
Right, yeah. And then we're like, yo, we should get some mac and cheese going in here.
So Luke goes in the back, I mean, our kitchen, and he's like making some mac and cheese. And he's like, yo, how much milk you guys want me to put in this? The box says put a half a cup for 2 boxes of mac and cheese. And we're like, then put a half a cup. So he says, I like to keep it creamy.
And we're like, you mean soupy, right?
And so he says, so I'm just going to put a cup of mac and cheese, twice the normal amount of milk for this mac and cheese. And we're like, no. You can do that to your own bowl of mac and cheese.
Exactly, yeah. Just take your big bowl of mac and cheese, pour your own,
however much milk you want. If you want some cereal,
exactly.
Go ahead.
Dude, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, at that point, you're basically having mac and cheese cereal.
Mac and cheese soup, yeah.
Yeah, mac and cheese soup. But you know what? That sounds good in a bread bowl. I'd eat mac and cheese soup in a bread bowl.
I would eat anything in a bread bowl. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Almost anything.
I mean, obviously draw a line, but yeah, bread bowl is just.
But like legitimate food, I would eat in a bread bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a coworker. He actually ended up making his own bread. He started that, and it looks phenomenal. It looks so good, man.
So sticking on the topic of mac and cheese, how often do you cook in the dark, Mike?
This was brought up during the week because I was like, man, do you ever just get those kind of midnight vibes where you're hungry, you just want to make some food and whatnot?
But you really don't want to turn on the lights?
Exactly. You don't want to turn on the lights because, you don't want to just like shred your eyes. And so I figured, hey, I mean, you wake up from your nap.
I mean, but when
midnight.
In that situation, it makes sense because when you're first waking up, your eyes have adjusted to the dark because you haven't been in the light. So you have pretty good night vision at that point in time. Now, if you have been outside or it's light or there's lights on in the house and you just go into the kitchen, turn off all the lights and start cooking, it just does not, no.
What about like flashlight cooking? You just have like one of those like headlamps and it's like, it's like a band that you put around your head.
But why? What are you trying to save on your electric bill by using batteries? What?
It would just be so funny. Like I can imagine someone doing that. I'd do it, for a challenge or whatnot.
I mean, yeah, challenge. Okay, yeah, I give you that one.
Although I'd probably do it even without the challenge, just for fun.
I know you would, Mike.
This might be a regular occasion now. You might be seeing me cooking in the dark.
Just like your weird thing about sleeping in other people's beds.
Yeah. I mean, okay, look, you have a pretty comfy bed.
I do have a pretty comfy bed, yes.
I have a pretty comfy bed. Your bed is bigger than my bed.
Yeah.
And it also has that nice like foam padding on it.
And for context here, I was playing video games one day and Mike walks into my room and lays down on my bed without me even knowing it. I'm sitting here playing video games.
Yeah, straight up.
And he wasn't intending to fall asleep. And so he was laying down on my bed and passes out for like an hour and a half, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. I mean, because the way that your desk is set up is that your desk is in the corner and then your bed's in the other corner here.
Yeah, so I
So you couldn't see it.
unless
Your
I
back
turned
was-
around and looked at my bed or
Which you're too focused on the game.
Yeah.
So I was out for it. Yeah. Probably like an hour, hour and a half.
yeah, and so eventually he wakes up and is like, "Bro, you still haven't noticed that I'm sleeping in your bed?" No, I didn't even know you were here. So
Yeah. I just thought that was funny.
yeah, it was funny. I mean, he was totally not intentionally, like he didn't intend to go take a nap on my bed. It was just
Yeah. It was just so comfy. I was like, hey, I'm going to see how long I can just lay
stay
here.
without Jameis noticing that I'm here, and then he fell asleep.
And I straight up fell asleep. But like the thing is, I had to end up switching my bed out with the guest bed that
Yeah,
my parents
Mike's
had.
old bed had a lumbar support issues,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
he was having serious back issues,
yeah, it was,
which is why he kept asking me like to crack his back all the time because he was having some back pain. And Mike came up with the idea. I told him one time that one of my dreams was to become a chiropractor. That was before I realized how much schooling you have to go through to be a chiropractor.
oh yeah, I mean, you got to get your master's, your
Yeah.
PhD, and plus, I mean,
You're
dude,
essentially becoming a doctor at
the
that point.
insurance you need, man. If
Yeah.
you crack someone's back a little too much, or and if you crack someone's back the wrong way, you better hope you got insurance for that.
Yeah, so Mike ended up suggesting, he's like, you should just go like charge money. I was like, no, Mike,
Right.
you have to have a degree.
On the side, like a black market chiropractic.
Yeah, so
care.
That brought up the conversation between what are we naming it, black market chiropractic or
Freelance chiropractic.
freelance chiropractic? Yeah,
The thing is, saying you're a black market chiropractic makes you sound like you're kind of a drug dealer. It's your code name for, oh yeah, I sell weed on the side, but don't tell anyone.
yeah.
Whereas freelance chiropractic, it sounds good. You got freelance photographers and whatnot. So maybe you just got your own business. It's just
But it still
you.
boils down to the fact that you need
In
a
your home?
degree.
I mean, could be right on your couch or something, right on your table.
Just to let everybody know, I'm not actually going to go start a black market chiropractic thing. It just, Mike appreciated my skills for cracking a back.
Yeah. Dude, your back cracking abilities are just phenomenal. You're saving
The
lives.
trick is
James.
the deep breath. Like you taking the deep breath, let it all out, and then once it's all out, you push right on the right spot, and it just pops.
Right, it just snaps. right
I
ahead.
learned that from my chiropractor because he had.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played football for many years,
Oh, right.
and so I used to have to go to the chiropractor once a week to
Oh, okay.
adjust for the fact that my body was just being tortured every week at football games.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I've
And-
never been to a chiropractic appointment. I've always wanted to.
Really? Yeah, you definitely should. It's definitely an experience. And like I said, I had to go every week because my body was going through all this
Right, it was just so
physical
sore and
abuse from
achy.
football. Yeah.
Right.
And so, and on top of that, I had a previous back injury from football, and so essentially, I had a muscle in my back that seized up around the nerve, and it
Oh, dang.
it caused a lot of back pain, and I still have severe back pain from it to this day, and always will probably. So
Dang, that's awful. Did you ever have to take like pain medicine, or did your chiropractor ever give you like painkillers? Or
no, he didn't. I've never been a big pain medicine type person.
okay,
I would rather live with the pain than take medicine to counteract it. I'm just not big on taking pills.
gotcha.
I don't
I
like.
feel.
yeah.
I mean, I feel that. So I'm totally fine taking pills, but the thing is, I don't want to be on pills long term.
Yeah, no, I
That's
know it
awful.
does. Yeah, you don't want to become addicted to that. That'll ruin your life.
Right.
And so I've never had pain to the level that I've needed to take pills. So, or whatever it may be for the pain.
Right. Yeah.
Painkillers or something. When my wisdom tooth started coming in, that's when I started hitting the ibuprofen pretty hard because
Yeah.
it was just so I had to get through the day. I had to take some ibuprofen.
Yeah. Same with my wisdom teeth, and then that back pain that I was having was
Yeah.
just awful. But the funny thing is that so we can get 200 milligrams of Motrin, or I guess just ibuprofen in general, in one pill, and that's just over the counter. But the thing is, in Germany, or I mean, you could probably say the same for all of Europe, but when I actually went to Germany, I had ended up sliding and slipping down steel stairs mind you, it was a spiral staircase. The edges of the stairs had metal on it, and I caught my elbow on that. I mean, my back still hurt from it, obviously, but my elbows helped, brace me so that my head's not like smacking on the stairs. Basically, because of that incident, I ended up having to get just like loaded on a bunch of like pain suppressors. And, it was ibuprofen, except that instead of 200 milligrams in the one pill, it was 800 right there. This pill was pretty massive, and it was hard to swallow too. But I was like, man, I'm going to have to like go to the ER or something. I was bleeding, and I mean, you know how much I hate blood. I cannot do blood.
I know you don't like blood that much.
Yeah, and I was just bleeding a lot, and I was like, oh, this is just awful. I almost passed out. I didn't. In fact, I've never passed out, like,
Really?
unintentionally. Yeah, I mean, I've been under, like surgery.
When I
having
had that muscle
anesthesia,
seize up around the nerve, I passed out from the pain.
Really?
Yeah. I was in football practice, and we were running a particular drill. It was a tackling drill, and essentially the way it works is you have two people standing facing each other, probably 15 yards apart, and you run directly at each other, and it's an evasion drill, or
Okay.
it can either be an evasion drill or a breaking tackles drill, depending on who you are and how you play the game of football.
Okay, interesting.
But essentially, they're facing each other. I was the one with the ball, and I ran, and I'm a big guy, so I ran, I smashed into the guy and knocked him backwards because he was a smaller guy, and we just weren't matched right for each other.
Dang.
And so I knocked him back, and he's on the ground, so I kept running, which is also part of the drill. Well, he got a little angry and got back up and ran after me while I was already past him.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so he came back and tackled me in the back with the helmet first and put it in the back of my back. And so,
dude.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd probably pass out from something like that. I mean, I've had immense pain before, but yeah, nothing that.
yeah, and
like,
it wasn't
oof.
actually that moment in time that it activated the seize.
Okay,
That just created the injury at start.
gotcha.
I was at school and we were doing some sort of like jungle gym obstacle course, pretty
Okay.
much. And so you would go jump over objects or something like that. And I was in the middle of the obstacle course and I had to jump over. It was like one of those standing walls where you had to run up and jump and flip over it.
Oh yeah, I know.
And I was in the middle of that, and it was just it wasn't even like I was stressing my back that much, but it was just the way that it bent, it exacerbated that injury, and
Oh.
so that's when it seized up fully, and I passed out from the pain. I felt the pain first, and then I went to the ground, and then the medical staff came, and I then I like passed out in front of them, and they put a cold water bottle over my forehead, and that's what brought me back to consciousness.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Dang, dude.
So, yeah, they called my mom, and then she came and picked me up, took me to the hospital. And
Was it super expensive then because of like the bill and?
I think
and
at
then,
the time we had insurance. So
Okay. Yeah, I know my family has insurance as well.
at that time we had insurance, thankfully.
Okay,
so,
gotcha. Yeah, I'm not actually sure what my family's insurance covers, but like even as a kid, I would go see a dentist every 6 months, and then I'd have a yearly physical checkup. But not once.
Yeah, most of
did
my
I ever-
young childhood I had insurance.
Okay,
It's mainly my adult life that I haven't had insurance.
gotcha. Well, that would make sense then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still covered. I think I'm covered under my parents' insurance until 25.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on Medicaid most of my life, but
Right.
it's been at least I have insurance.
Right. But now that you got your job over at the healthcare IT
Mm-hmm.
over at Central,
Yeah,
you got insurance now. so
not
that's
through my
good.
job though.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's because it's still a job through CMU. CMU doesn't pay for insurance.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It is what it is. Once I graduate, hopefully I'll have a job that gives me a stable insurance.
Right.
Speaking on that topic of your family in general, your family lives mostly here in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah,
correct?
for sure.
So how do you think that has shaped you in your life, knowing that you've always been close to your family and you don't have to travel to go see your family all the time and
Right. Yeah. So the nice thing is, I mean, there's definitely pros and cons to it for
Mhm.
sure. So living in the dorms last year, that being my first experience ever living outside of my family's home, as like most college students are their
Yeah.
freshman year,
Yeah, no, I understand.
it was nice having my parents literally half a mile away.
Because you have that escape because,
Yeah, I mean, I was going there like every weekend, basically.
Mhm.
And not that my dorm experience wasn't all that bad. I loved it and I loved the guys that I was with.
yeah.
But yeah, I just needed to
I mean,
stay
even some of
from
the best dorm experiences, I think they're not that great. I think the dorms in general are just an accident waiting to happen at all times. And I mean, my experience was worse than most.
right, of course.
So, and um, yeah, so I think in general, there's not very many people that go out of the dorm saying, I really loved the experiences of living with
Yeah, that's true. And
three other dudes that didn't really know. And
right. And the nice
even
thing,
if you go in with your best friend, like I think you did.
yeah, so I ended
And
up living with my best friend Alex and we had a great time. Yeah, sure, we definitely like had our arguments here and there, but we've always had those in our friendships and we've always been able to make up for it like a day after, if not sooner. And then meeting Mills and Ryan was great because all four of us, we just respected each other and we just all had a great time.
yeah,
Honestly.
and plus you lived in the music place where you all had shared passion for music.
Right, that's true. Whereas like compared to the towers, you're just stuck with rando.
Yeah, I was in Molt Hall,
Okay.
and so
Yeah.
that was the science and engineering residential college. So
Right.
the nerd dorm,
Right.
But I'm an engineering student and
Mhm.
I'm a nerd, so
Right.
it worked out. But I was coming from Texas, and
Exactly.
I didn't know anybody coming into CMU, and so I was put with random people.
Right.
And while those people weren't bad people per se, it just was a bad situation,
Right.
and we weren't really compatible in that aspect. So, yeah, it didn't work out.
Right. Yeah, but even now, like living in the place that we do, I'm still a mile away from my parents, which
Yeah.
is funny. I've gone from a half mile to a mile. So hey,
Slowly
maybe
going away.
so maybe next year, if I'm at Casaloma, hey, there's another mile and a half now.
So tell me about the experience of like living with your siblings and stuff.
Yeah.
I have two brothers.
Okay.
On my dad's side, Braden and Jacob.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love the guys to death, but I don't
Awesome.
get to see them very often.
Oh, dang.
They live in St. Louis, so Missouri, not Michigan. So yeah, it's a drive, and I can't always afford to make that travel to go see them.
Right. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
so they're awesome little boys, and they're getting older, So
Awesome. Yeah, that's always a cool process to see.
maybe someday once I have a job where I make a little bit of money, I'll be able to
Visit them more often.
be able to afford to take a vacation and go visit them. Yeah.
That's sweet, man. That's so cool. Yeah, so for me, I have a brother that is 17 years old. I'm 20, and then my sister is 10.
Okay.
So I'm the oldest child, and then my mom had a miscarriage a year after me. So I would have a sister that's 19 right now.
Yeah, my closest
Or
brother
turning
is
19.
9 years younger than me,
Right, okay.
and I'm 21, turning 22.
Gotcha.
And then my other brother is Jacob. He's turning 11. He's 10 years younger than me.
So Jacob's turning 11.
Yeah, in June he turns 11.
Awesome. That's cool.
And yeah, so they're not very close to me in age.
But you're still able to connect with them.
Yeah, no, they're amazing little boys. And like I said, I wish I could have been more a part of their lives growing up, but the distance is, it is
It's hard.
yeah, it's a big leap.
Yeah, for sure. If I would have gone to another university, it would have been really hard for my sister. So I'm really close with both my brother and my sister. I would say that I'm closer with my sister, but the reason for that is because I really took a lot of care for her
Yeah.
and like throughout her childhood and
Well,
whatnot, and-
you were the oldest brother, and so
Right,
when
for
she
sure.
was born, you were probably around the age that your parents were
kind of expecting
trusted
me
you
to
enough
actually
to
take care of my
take
siblings.
care of your
Right.
younger
That's
sister.
true.
And
Yeah, I
so-
mean, I've been 10 years older than her. And so the thing is, like, it's a cool process to see both of them grow up and to see like who they've become, because my brother and I used to fight and argue so much, man, when we were kids, just over video games or over a way that something should be done. But yeah, we would just fight and argue. Now we've gotten to the point, especially in the distance has really helped this too. And I know it's only like a mile away, but it's great because now my brother and I kind of just exchange memes back and forth. We're at that point in our brotherhood. And I just think that's so cool.
Like I said, I've lived most of my life with family that is a great distance away.
Right.
A majority of my family lives here in Michigan, so I have
And that's nice. Yeah.
aunts and uncles, and my grandparents live here in Mount Pleasant and in Gaylord. And
Right.
so I spent a great deal of time on planes coming up to Michigan, trying to efficiently see as many people as I possibly could in the time that I had.
Gotcha.
So it boiled down to spending about a week at every location.
Holy moly.
And so,
And how many different locations?
well, essentially it was here in Gaylord. Thankfully, it wasn't more. I have a lot of family in Flint and Detroit area, but that's more extended family that, as much as I would love to spend more time and go and see and visit them,
Right.
it just wasn't in the cards. So, it was a sacrifice that ended up happening. Now that I live in Michigan, I see people a lot more than I used to. So, like, instead of seeing them once a year, I see them,
Right.
like 5 times a year.
Right. And even
Yeah.
the relationship that I've had with my parents and specifically my dad is great because my dad and I would argue and fight even more so than my brother and I. We're both the oldest child. We both want things done a certain way, and they're usually always a different way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and so essentially, I'm the oldest of all my cousins.
Okay.
And most of my cousins live in Gaylord, and I'm not the oldest by far. The next oldest is only 7 hours and 10 minutes younger than me.
Right.
And so we were born on the same day. We've always been really close. I like to say that we're basically twins who weren't born of the same parents, And even though we've kind of grown differences in our personalities and stuff, and we don't look anything alike. He's super tall and thin, and I'm medium height and big built.
Yeah.
And so it just, when we were younger, we were about the same height. We were always really close. We had very similar personalities. And so people grow differently throughout their lives. And so,
Right, for sure. I mean, everyone has different experiences, whatnot. So, yeah, back to what I was saying. Basically, the distance between here to my parents' house is really nice because even though in the past my dad and I would argue a lot, now it kind of forces us to take advantage of the time that we do have together.
yeah, you cherish the moments you don't always get to have.
Right, exactly.
And so I always loved going and coming up to Michigan because my family they're so loving and caring and everything. And so when I came up, they were always really happy to see me because they didn't get to see me very often.
Yeah.
And so I was always really happy to see them because I didn't get to see them very often. And we were able to make the most out of the time that we had, even though we didn't get very much time. So it was nice to be able to. I still would have loved to live here, and I also still loved Texas. So it was like
I mean,
you can't
it
have
has
both.
nice weather. It's warm weather. Sometimes a little too warm.
Yeah.
I've been to Texas once and it was for a business thing.
So I love my family, and even being so close to them, since I'm so busy, it's kind of hard to, even make that hour and a half trip up to Gaylord to go visit the family I have up there. So
Right.
there was a story that I've been withholding from telling Mike because I wanted to tell it on the podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
And Mike asked about
what
it.
it was
It
generally
was
about.
about bullying.
That's right.
You asked me about bullying, and I can't remember exactly what you said, but you said something like,
A lot of the bullying that happened, at least for me within the public education system, was always, or not always, but mostly behind my back.
yeah,
Whereas the bullying that you said you experienced was always like a
it's more in
face-to-face.
your face, yeah. And now I remember it. I had some pretty extreme cases of bullying when I was in sixth grade, fifth and sixth grade.
Okay.
And so to tell the story right, I have to start from the beginning. And I started off my fifth grade experience at, I can't remember the name of the school, but it was one school that was zoned for the place we lived. In the middle of the school year, we moved to a new location. And even though Texas isn't as cold as Michigan, when we moved, we weren't zoned for the school I was going to, where all my friends were, where I liked everybody and everything. So essentially, I was riding my bike about 2 miles each way to get to school every morning, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're 11 years old, you know, and it's pretty cold outside and you can't make that trip every day anymore. So essentially, we had to transfer to the school that had a bus route for me to go to. And that school that I transferred to, I was the new kid. I came in and nobody knew me. I didn't have any friends.
Yeah. Right.
And so essentially, I was getting severely bullied, and they didn't really care whether it was in my face or behind my back. And came to the point where I was sitting on the playground at recess just reading a book, sitting on a tree. And not to say reading a book was bad, but if anybody who knows me knows that my personality is like, I would much rather talk to a person than do just about anything else on the planet. Once it came to a later time in the school year where it was getting warmer again and I could start riding my bike, I finally it was a lot of issues because I was like refusing to go to school, and mom was like, I don't know why you're not going to school. And so I didn't tell her this information. I was going to school every
Wow.
day. I was hurting emotionally, and eventually I broke down and I told my mom, I was like, I just don't have any friends. I hate it here. I just want to go back to the other school. And so we went, and finally my mom transferred me back to that school. And the rest of the year I lived out, I was happy. I was with my friends again. I was like, oh, everybody, we're back. And
Yeah.
I was
gang's all
happy to
back
ride my
together.
bike 2 miles every day to get to school.
Dang. Wow. Okay.
And so we come the year ends. Well, this was fifth grade. So there was one middle school in the area, and all of these smaller schools merged together into that one middle school. So essentially, the school I went to people I liked merged with the school that I went to with the people I didn't like, who were bullying me all the time. And all of a sudden, my good friends are now friends with people that I don't like very much and who don't like me and who bully me.
Did
And
you
so
ever tell them though?
no, I mean I did, but essentially
They never backed you up or anything?
no. That they ended up becoming just as mean as the people I went to.
Dude, what
Yeah.
the heck?
And so I made it about 6 months in middle school, and then I came to my mom again. I was like, Mom, I don't know this isn't working. I don't know how to make new friends because these people are the same people that hated me the first time, and so essentially my mom finally made the decision. She pulled me out of school, and I was homeschooled for the rest of middle school. And it was the greatest decision ever because the homeschool community in Austin is phenomenal because there's a big community. And so one of the biggest arguments against homeschooling is that people don't get the social aspect of school, but the social aspect of school just wasn't working for me. And it was hard, because
Yeah.
I
Wow,
was
that's really good.
I wasn't learning to love myself. I was learning to hate myself.
Yeah.
And so my mom took me out of school, brought me to all these social events for homeschoolers, and put me in a group of people who all felt the same way about society that they were having. Like all these people were people who had been bullied themselves in some cases. And so they were very accepting. They were a lot more accepting than the students in the regular school system.
So would you say that that's where your idea of like what a true community looks like then? Because
Yeah.
being in Chi Alpha, I mean, you've obviously seen it, you've obviously experienced being in like a really big loving community. But was that the last time that you were in like a really nice like fellowship community kind of?
No, I'd say most of my life, my mother did a very great job of keeping me in connection with people and in communities that were supportive and caring and loving. And basically, it was the difference between going to school and learning to hate myself versus having the freedom to learn to love myself. And
Right. Wow.
so it was the best decision my mom ever made for my well-being and my mental health.
Right.
And so
Do you ever think about like what it would be like if you hadn't been placed into homeschool and pulled out from the situation that
Yeah.
you were in?
it's hard to know what would be in a situation that you can't really know what would have happened in that way. I might have turned out just fine. But in my opinion, at that time, what was happening wasn't working, and what she did was the right choice. It was hard for her because my grandmother was a school teacher. And so she was raised that, like, you don't put students in homeschooling because homeschooling doesn't work and you don't get social. It was a hard decision for her to make because her whole life she's been raised to know that school is where you need to have your kids.
Wow. And that's your grandmother on your mom's side?
Yes, my mom's mother.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she,
Okay.
she was a school teacher.
Yeah, wow. I think for me, because of how small Mount Pleasant is, my personality would be quite different compared to who I am now. Maybe I would be more social, maybe I'd be less. But I could definitely say for sure if I was homeschooled, I would have a completely different personality
And
because my friends helped shape my personality in a way.
yeah, but it's different being homeschooled in rural Michigan versus being homeschooled in a metropolitan city where there's a lot more people per area and there's a lot more people who are homeschooled. So when you have like 300 people who are being homeschooled in an area versus two.
Or even like, yeah, 15,
So
20.
essentially, I knew the same amount of people who were being homeschooled as the people I would have known going to a regular high school.
That's really cool. So then how did that actually like work out?
So I did it a little differently than a lot of homeschoolers do it. A lot of homeschoolers, their parents teach them courses and stuff like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's what my uncle and my aunt are doing.
I basically did an online school where I had regular teachers. It was just online at home.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So was it using something similar to Blackboard then?
Yeah, it was
Or
kind of
Moodle?
similar to that. Yep.
Okay, cool. But then you would actually go out and see the kids that you were in this online class with, or?
No, not necessarily that I was in an online class with. We were on at the time they were like Yahoo groups. Now
Okay.
it would probably be like a Facebook group or something. But it was a long time ago and that wasn't really a thing yet.
MySpace.
Yeah.
Dude, that'd be funny.
So
You got all these kids on MySpace.
yeah, so my
Yo.
mom found this homeschooling group on Yahoo groups and
Very interesting.
they
Okay.
had
Cool.
they
Wow.
had things on multiple days of the week. Like we had Wednesday was
Who knew you could find things on Yahoo Group?
yeah, I don't think you can find anything on Yahoo groups anymore.
I don't even think Yahoo Groups exist anymore.
I don't think it does either. So Wednesday during the day there was free skate at a roller rink in
Okay.
Austin, and so you'd pay like $10 or something, and you were able to skate. And then they had like fun games that they do, like floor hockey and dodgeball and stuff like that. And that was with a bunch of homeschooler people. And then every Friday they had a park day. So some of the admins of the group, people who were more involved, would choose a park in the city of Austin to go to. And all of these homeschoolers would meet up at this park and just basically have fun and hang out together at this park. And back to Wednesday, we actually had after the roller skating Wednesdays, we would go to Fuddruckers.
What's Fuddruckers?
It's like a sandwich place in Texas.
Okay, cool. I was thinking it was like an arcade, like a Craig's Cruisers or Kokomo's.
No,
Or
it's more of
Dave
like
and
a
Buster's. You ever been to those?
no, it's more like a Jimmy John's almost.
Oh, okay.
But they got like burgers and stuff like that too, and nachos and
Nice. Sounds good.
But we would go to the Fuddruckers and we would play board games at the Fuddruckers.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting that you mention like games within like a restaurant kind of like
Mhm.
that. So there was a place here that was called the Malt Shop.
Yeah, I've been to the mall shop.
Right. And it's closed down now. But my dad and I would always go to the malt shop. And when we did go to the malt shop, we'd order malts, we'd order pizza, and then we would just put a bunch of quarters into all these arcade games. And we'd play everything from Galaga to Pac Man to Donkey Kong to Mario. I mean, all sorts of things. And I mean, they even had like racing games and they had hunting games. It was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a
And
lot. I never experienced that side of the malt shop. We came the last couple years.
okay. Well, yeah, the thing is, like, so the malt shop stopped having all those arcade games, but back where their actual, like, party host room is, they ended up having all the arcade games back there. And I actually had my 16th birthday party there. It was a surprise birthday party. Had no idea. My dad was like, "Yo, we should go to the malt shop, celebrate old times." I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." So we go there, and then like everyone I know and their brother was there, and I was like,
Hey, brother.
"Brother," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I did not see it coming at all. But anyway, so that was super cool. And then back when Dragon Express was not a Dragon Express, it was called the Grotto, and
Grotto.
the grotto. Yeah, so my dad, my brother, and I, we'd go to the grotto. Again, we'd get pizza, but instead of playing arcade games, which they did have arcade games, my dad taught me how to play billiard.
Oh yeah, no, I
And
love billiards.
yeah, they had a couple different pool tables there, and it was great. That's how I learned how to play. I mean, I'm not good by any means, but I'm decent, you know? Basically, that kind of became a tradition. Like, hey, we should go to the grotto. It's kind of like a Mancino's. They had clubs, they got grinders, they got pizza, breadsticks,
That's
you know.
awesome.
It kind of reminds me of like Bell's Pizza. Yeah, and which I
Like,
love
think
their
they,
buffalo
I think
pizza.
they
Oh,
closed
so
down.
good. I know, I'm so sad. I love their buffalo pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So good. But basically, yeah, so we would go to the grotto. And then the other location that we would go to as kids that my dad would take my brother and I to was a place called, well, we called it the drugstore. I don't even know what its actual name is, but it's downtown and they also sell malts there. And so after the end of
Interesting.
yeah, I know. So I know just a father and in his 30s and his two young boys walk into a drugstore in downtown Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant has like the weirdest ideas for like just establishments in general.
Right.
Like they got Taco Boy.
It's near the
which
Max and
is-
Emily's.
Yeah,
But the thing, I think it actually is called the drugstore. But the thing is, they actually have like over the counter medicine that they sell there.
yeah.
I mean, they're not selling like weed and crack and all sorts of like
Yeah, no,
drugs,
I
but
understand. It's like an actual like
it's just-
prescription drug store. Yeah.
prescription drugstore. And I don't know if they're still. I don't think they're a pharmacy anymore. So I don't know what they call themselves. I think they sell like antique items now, but they still got the malts, bro. Actually, we should go.
Well, we'll definitely go sometime now that I know that's a thing.
Let's go tomorrow. They should still. I believe they still have their malts, and their sodas are only like $1.
Okay, we'll
Just like
we'll go.
McDonald's.
I don't know about tomorrow, but we'll
Okay.
go. I've told you this before, but remember that I went to summer camp here at CMU as a child,
Oh yeah, that's right.
and I only have a few memories from there because I was so young when I did go there. And one of the memories I have is that before we started the day every morning, the parents would drop off the kids, and we would go into the billiards room in the SAC, and we would just they would have like video games set up, and one of the most common ones was they had Dance Dance Revolution on the TV.
Yo, dude.
But we would be able to play the billiards, or we could do. We basically just hung out for like an hour, but until we got started with the day of actually like whatever we're gonna do, whether it be the water games, swimming, stuff like that. But you know, it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of really cool people.
Yeah, that's dope. Actually, speaking of Dance Dance Revolution, so my mom used to work out over at Maury Courts, and they had like a kids section that had games in there. I mean, like gym kind of games, like activity games, games that get you on your feet, moving, whatnot.
Yeah, makes sense.
And they had a Dance Dance Revolution machine at Maury Courts. And my brother and I would play on it all the time while, you know, my mom's on the treadmill or, you know, she's
And
doing
you guys
some
are
kind
just
of,
dancing
she's
away.
doing laps or something. And then meanwhile, Nick and I over here in the corner of a Maury Courts are just like dancing our hearts out. And
Brick House.
a brick house.
That's the song. It's one of the main songs that was on Dance Dance Revolution.
I don't remember that.
Huh.
I don't remember any
I don't
of the
remember any
songs
of the
on there,
rest of
dude.
the words, but I
I
remember
just
that
remember the
brick
movements,
house.
man. I would sweat like crazy. You want to talk about a cardio workout? Get on Dance Dance Revolution machine.
Yeah,
That'll
I
get
think it
you.
was like an '80s rap song or something. The
Okay.
Brick House, but
Or like I was gonna say Ice Ice Baby,
no,
but
not
man,
Ice
I
Ice Baby.
mean,
That
that
same
is
generation of rap songs, I think. But
right. But like, how would you dance to that? I mean, I
I don't
guess you
know.
could, but like on a Dance Dance Revolution machine, up, down, left, right,
Yeah,
right,
it's
right,
exactly
left,
like
down.
that. Well, the Dance Dance Revolution thing we had wasn't an arcade machine. It was just the original Xbox set up with mats.
Connect.
No, the
Oh,
original Xbox
oh, shoot.
set
So
up
you
with
guys
like
had the
the
mats,
pads,
right?
mats. Yeah,
Dude, so my friend ended up having a Dance Dance Revolution pad. I think they had 2 of them. And then we also had a karaoke machine. It was a High School Musical karaoke machine.
that reminds me that me and my mom used to have the SingStar Ultimate Pop game on PlayStation 2 where you would hook up, it was like a microphone splitter with these 2 really terrible quality microphones that you would plug in. One
Unlike
was red,
these
one was
microphones.
blue.
These microphones are pretty high quality.
The ones we were using for the video game were not.
Oh, okay.
And so we would one was red, one was blue, and you'd plug it into the PlayStation 2, and the same port you'd plug in the regular controllers.
Right.
And so you know the quality was bad because you're plugging them into a PS2 controller port.
Big rip, bro. That's awful.
So
yeah, I can't even imagine.
So yeah,
the
it was
compression.
SingStar Pop. So we would sing things like Evanescence and stuff, and we loved
Oh
that
my
game. It was so much
gosh,
fun.
Throwback. Holy
Because
moly, dude.
I've told you, me and my mom, we loved to sing together, and
Right, yeah.
it's one of my fondest memories of a child is when she would help come and sing me to bed, and
Okay.
so we just enjoy singing thoroughly. So that game was a connecting moment for us. We'd be able to play that game together. So
Yeah. Do you have any like good founding memories of like with your dad and whatnot? Like in childhood or something?
yeah. So when I was younger, we went. I went down to visit my dad in Ohio, and we
Okay.
would we'd go into the shop, and he always had stuff for us to do when we came down there. So like riding a dirt bike or 4-wheelers or snowmobiles, depending on the year.
Dude, that's dope.
But he would always buy something that needed a little bit of work. So my dad has a very good skill of buying stuff and then being able to make a profit off of it. So
Nice, yeah.
like
You said in the
buying
back.
a computer and then fixing it up and selling it for more than what he bought it for
You bought it.
originally.
Yep.
So, but it was usually like things like dirt bikes, motorcycles, things like that he does, or
Yeah.
sound equipment.
I mean, engineering definitely runs in the family.
Yeah. So he would buy like one time he bought me a dirt bike that had a bent rim and the carburetor needed to be cleaned. And so we would go into the garage and he would teach me how to actually do things like that, like fix up the dirt bike. And it's where my passion for things like fixing cars and everything came from, is spending that time with my dad.
That's so cool, dude. That's awesome.
So what was some of your fondest memories with your parents? Defining moments, like me sitting in the garage working on vehicles with my dad or motorcycles and stuff, or singing with my mom when I was going to sleep and stuff.
Right.
So do you have memories like that? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you do have memories. So things that like you were so young you couldn't remember things, but they were so important to you that you still remembered them.
Yeah, so for me, my mom actually stayed home. She was a stay-at-home mom for all 3 of us.
That's awesome.
I know. I mean, it was a blessing, honestly. And so I remember my mom and I would do this thing, and I can't remember it vividly, honestly, but my mom has a giant baby book of me, and it's not a scrapbook. It has scrapbooks in it, but you open it up and it's a box. Yeah, I mean this is a thick book because it's a box inside that. It's basically a box with a dope looking cover, and it has a progression of me like growing up in pictures. And so basically in my baby book, we have old Polaroid photos of my mom and I taking, we would always call them funny faces. And we would just look into the camera and snap a picture of our most ridiculous and funny faces. That was always fun messing around with that. We also have cassette tapes of my mom and I like talking back and forth on these cassettes. I don't know if my brother and my sister have those, I know a lot of my sister's stuff is digital.
I was gonna say
Right,
you're not gonna have a
so-
cassette tape of your younger sibling. It's
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we might have for Nick. And we had this thing called a flip camera. And I mean, all it was just a video recorder, and it also took photos. And it was really cool because that was my first experience with digital photography, whereas the photos that my mom and I would take were analog. Obviously, I mean, they were Polaroid, and then we'd have to print them out and whatnot. And then, yeah, as for my dad, the large prob I'd argue that this is probably the most defining moment in my life and shaped me to who I am today, because music is such a huge part of who I am today and what I do. I would say that this is probably like one of the biggest defining moments. So, my dad and I would wake up probably around like 7 a.m. and go to church. And even though service started, closer to 10 o'clock, my dad and I would wake up at 7 a.m., get Tim Hortons for breakfast. And mind you, I was about 10 years old. And then we would go to worship practice. And I would watch him play drums, and I'd watch the rest of the band, and I'd just sit in the, front. We didn't have pews, we had chairs. And I'd sit in the front row of the chairs and then just watch the band. And from that, I mean, my dad was teaching me drum set through that. I was really interested. And I mean, eventually I ended up getting to play with that worship team. And then unfortunately, we had to close down the building because we were a couple $1 million in debt. And we had to sell it to another church to actually dig us out of the hole that we were in. So, yeah, I would say that was a pretty big defining moment for me. Yeah, it's just really cool. And then from that, that's like the beginning of where I really started to love music. And it was more than just listening. It became like, no, I can actually do
a
this.
passion for
Yeah, a passion for sure.
creating.
Right. And then of course things like, being more involved in music with middle school, playing saxophone and being in the drum line for marching band,
Mhm.
and then, playing in musicals and being in the pit orchestra for that. All this
Yeah.
just accumulated to me just loving music on top of playing and leading worship music at my youth group.
Yeah. And mind you, Mike has an amazing singing voice on top of being a multi-instrumental a music player. And so he's just very talented when it comes to music. And he even is part of our group's worship team and leads us in our worship. As you were talking about that, that got me to thinking. So when I was very, very young, the first year of my life, my mom lived with her mother in Gaylord. And so my grandparents would watch me a lot. And one of the greatest things I can look back on is see the pictures from that time. And my mom had a thing for, she loved my unhappy faces. And so she loved to try to take pictures like when I'm like really upset, and then she thought it was funny when my upset face was just like so amusing to her, and so I'd be like crying and like distraught, and she'd take a picture like, and so I can look back on these pictures now of,
Dude, that's awesome.
and so I can look back on these pictures and they're not all, I'm not all unhappy. Obviously, I was a very happy baby usually, and so that's why she thought my unhappy face was so funny, because it was a rare occasion, and. But I have pictures of me and my grandpa where he's holding me in the rocking chair, and then
Or the lawnmower. You ever got
oh yeah,
that,
I have
that
a lot of
lawnmower?
pictures of me and my
Oh, yeah.
grandparents on the lawnmowers.
I mean, it's like, dude, what kid was not on their grandpa or their father's lap on the lawnmower?
Yeah, well, both my mom's dad and my mom's stepdad both had riding lawnmowers, and so there's pictures of me while they're mowing the lawn, because they had to do that pretty often.
Right, yeah.
And so there's pictures of me on their lap while they're riding around mowing the lawn. And it got down to my great grandpa, my mother's father, my mother's mother's father, my great great grandpa. He he also had a riding lawnmower. So when we moved down to South Line, we lived by where they lived. We lived about 1.5 miles away from them.
Okay, cool. Wow.
And so we would go over there often. And so I also have a picture of me and my great grandfather on a lawnmower before he died. And so that's another picture I cherish. The grandpas and lawnmowers is some of my favorites.
Nice. So there's this picture that my dad and I have of him laying down on this blue couch that we've had for a while, and I'm just like laying on his stomach. And
Okay.
I'm like less than a year old. So it's adorable because I'm so tiny and like he's so big compared to me. And yeah, it's funny because I'm just sprawled out on my dad's stomach and he's just like sprawled out on the couch. Yeah. I thought that was funny.
So that reminds me of, there's a picture of me and my mom is sitting on the couch, and just like a normal, like sitting in one spot on the couch, and I'm like climbing up onto the couch trying to get on her lap or whatever.
Yeah.
And she has this like hula necklace on or something like
Okay.
that, or it's not even, maybe she's not on, maybe it's just on her lap.
Yeah.
But I just got a vision in my head of like Baby Yoda reaching for that little twisty thing on the
Yeah.
ship.
The little ball at the
And
the
so
little
it was
end cap.
me reaching for that necklace, and I'm like on the ground like trying to climb on her lap grabbing this necklace.
Right.
And she's just sitting there it's at my Uncle Ollie's house. And so she's just sitting there on the couch. She doesn't care at all. She's talking to somebody else over on the other
Yeah.
side. She's not even looking at me, and I'm just like,
Yeah, it's
reaching
funny
for the-
because my brother and I ended up sharing a bedroom for years and years and finally split bedrooms when I want to say I was in high school and he was probably in middle school. But we had bunk beds
Hmm.
and they were like nice bunk beds, brand new when we got them. And we swapped between like whether I was on top or he was on bottom. I know before we split the bedrooms, I was on bottom and Nick was on top. And I remember this so vividly because, man, it was painful. But it was
Did you
late
fall off
at night.
the bed?
In a way, yes. But basically, so I was trying to mess with my brother. It was late at night. I put my feet up and like onto the top bunk, but the rest of my body was still on the bottom bunk. It'd be like if I was hanging from the top bunk by my feet. And I put it through the little rafters in which I could like mess with my brother and
Jeez.
he could like see my feet. So he then pushes my feet off and I do a complete backflip and land on my back on a massive pile of Legos.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Ow. That
Yeah.
hurts just sounding it. Oh god.
Yeah, it hurts my back just saying
It cracked.
that. Yeah.
So
Dude, that was one of the most painful experiences I've had in my life, easily. Legos hurt, man. It's one thing if it's
Yeah,
one
and I-
Lego
I-
on your foot. It's another if this is straight up like a massive pile of Legos and all your weight is just down on your back.
I had
on
a
these
bunk bed for a
Legos.
little while, just for like when friends came over for sleepovers.
Okay.
It was a full on the bottom and it was a twin on the top. So my bed was on the bottom where I would have the full bed usually, and then the twin, whenever friends came over, they'd sleep on the top bunk.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about like another time that has basically shaped my personality a lot, and that was my my grandpa John, or grandpa with the mustache, as we used to
Okay.
call him. Or as I used to call him. Nobody else called him that. It was just me. He was an engineer for public broadcasting, and his job was to maintain all of the radio stations and TV stations that public broadcasting was outputting to, and make sure that they were up and running at all times for the population of Michigan. So he would take me to work with him a lot, and his job had a lot to do with electricity and radio waves and frequencies and stuff, and how to do that. So him taking me to work essentially taught me almost everything I know about electricity and how it works, and understanding that, how everything works. And my degree is in electrical engineering. That has single-handedly basically like shaped how my brain works and how it is really efficient for understanding and working with electricity and stuff. So
That's cool
Yeah.
though. How it just like shaped your mindset and whatnot
Yeah.
from, I mean, you can
And my
definitely
whole
see it.
future. So like I've wanted to be
I
an
mean,
engineer
right,
my whole
yeah.
life. And
Now it's just picking like what kind of engineer.
yeah, I always thought I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I loved working on cars and stuff so much. And then I realized that I absolutely hate geometry. And
Yeah, dude, I ended up getting like a C plus in sophomore year of high school geometry. It's
yeah.
rough.
And so I took the intro to engineering class, and I took it essentially has 3 sections. You have the technology section, which is mechanical engineering technology, product design technology, which shows you that side of it, which is more hands-on lab work and making things work that have already been designed, and then helping to design the physical components of things and stuff like that. And then you have the electrical engineering section, which shows you basic circuits and how to analyze them and stuff. And I thoroughly enjoyed that section the most out of all of them.
Yeah.
And then you have the mechanical engineering section, which was all geometry based. Sakatoa, some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid.
Is that how you actually?
Remember, yeah. Some old
Sakatoa?
hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid.
Dude, I've never heard it like that.
Yeah.
It's sine, cosine, right?
Sine, cosine, tangent.
Yeah. Sine, cosine, Sakatoa. Okay.
Sine, opposite hypotenuse.
Right. Yeah.
Cosine, adjacent hypotenuse.
Right.
Tangent, opposite adjacent.
And that's all for like angles. And
Yeah. And so
lengths
some old
and-
hippie
oh,
caught another
man.
hippie tripping on acid.
That's very interesting. I've never heard that one.
So
I'll have to add that to my
geometry vocabulary.
my geometry vocabulary.
I think it's the best way to remember it because Sakatoa is just kind of
Sakatoa.
meh,
Yeah. Skrr.
But you're never gonna forget
Sounds like a rap.
that,
Sakatoa. Skrr. Get a pop pop.
some scat.
Some scat. Screebo. Yeah, scat.
So yeah, and so essentially, I just really enjoyed the circuit analysis, and so obviously I will take the actual circuit analysis classes in the future, and that'll tell me more about what I enjoy and if I do or actually enjoy it or not. But we'll just have to see. The future holds what it holds.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm starting to get pretty tired, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's almost midnight here. But anyways, hope y'all enjoyed episode 3 of Mojo and the Bro.
Tune in next week, and we'll have some more deep conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, see you.